The first time Elena Rivera heard the phrase, it was in a simulator. "You'll never control it," the Czech airman had said, shaking his head as the digital 737 pitched violently nose up on the screen. "Not once it gets this far out of trim. Real life. This is unrecoverable." The sim froze with the artificial ground rushing up in high-definition detail. Elena, sweating under the fluorescent lights of the training center in Dallas, stared at the frozen instruments. Overspeed, stall warning, stick shaker, red messages flashing like a Christmas tree of doom. "You reacted fast," the instructor added, softer now, smarter than most. "But physics wins. That's the point of this scenario. Know your limits. Sometimes, you just can't control it." She nodded, but a little ember inside her refused to accept that. There had to be a way. There was always a way. You just had to understand the A-plane better than the problem did. Months later, at 37,000 feet over the Midwest, those words would come back to her like an echo. Flight 282 from Chicago ahead to San Diego was about as routine as a 6-hour flight across the country could be. The 737 MAX 9 wore the blue and silver livery of Pacific Vista Airlines, a mid-size U.S. carrier that liked to advertise itself as your sky, your way. For Elena, it was her sky, her job, and her dream since she was 8 years old and had watched contrails crisscross the Texas sky. It was a late winter afternoon, thin bands of cirrus stretching over the heartland. Below them, the country was a patchwork of snow-dusted fields and winding rivers, already blurred by distance. The sun leaned west, painting the cabin windows with a soft golden light. In the left seat, Captain Mark Sullivan looked every inch the senior airline pilot, early 50s, strong jaw, gray at the temples. He'd started flying cargo in the 90s and still talked about how real flying meant 3 VORs, a paper chart, and a prayer. He'd mellowed with age, though, and he'd taken to mentoring newer pilots like Elena with steady patience. They were an hour into the flight. The seatbelt sign was off. The cabin had settled into the usual rhythm of quiet conversation, movie screens, and the occasional ding of a call button. Elena sipped lukewarm coffee from a stainless steel tumbler and watched the primary flight display. Airspeed, 0.78 Mach. Altitude, FL 370. All the numbers lined up in tidy green. Then she felt it, the faintest tremor through the yoke. Not turbulence. Something else. She frowned and lightly wrapped her right hand around the control column, feeling for it again. "You feel that?" she asked. Mark glanced over. "Feel what?" "Little vibration in the yoke. Like a buzz. Real faint." He rested his hand on his side of the yoke, watching the instruments. A few seconds passed. The plane hummed along, smooth as glass. "I don't feel it," he said. "Might just be airflow changes. Jet stream's a little messy today. Keep an eye on it." She nodded, but her attention sharpened. Elena had learned to trust the airplane's subtle messages. When she was a teenager, she'd flown gliders out of a dusty strip in West Texas. Up there, without an engine, you lived or died by how closely you listened to the air. The tremor came again, slightly stronger. This time, a soft whirring sound accompanied it from behind the panel, almost too quiet to hear over the fans and the whoosh of pressurized air. Elena's eyes flicked to the stabilizer trim indicator. For a split second, she saw it move. Just a notch. Then it stopped. She watched it like a hawk. There. Another tiny movement. Nose down trim. Then back. Then nose up. "Mark," she said, more serious now. "Look at the trim." He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The trim needle jiggled again. Not enough to alarm the automation, but enough that someone paying close attention would see it. "Autopilot might be hunting a little," he muttered, "but it shouldn't be doing that in smooth air." He reached up and sub-vocalized, "Autopilot off." His thumb clicked the disengage switch on the yoke. A soft caution tone sounded and the green CMD light on the flight director blinked out. The airplane barely moved, a slight shudder. Then it settled as he took manual control. Elena's headset crackled. "Flight deck, this is Maya in the forward galley." "Captain, first officer, everything okay?" Felt a little weird just now. Maya Jackson, the lead flight attendant, had been flying with them for years. Her calm southern accent carried just a hint of tension now. "We're looking at a small control issue," Mark said, pressing the interphone button. "Nothing to worry about. Please have everyone remain seated with their belts on for now just in case. We'll keep you updated." "Copy that," Maya replied. Elena watched the trim indicator. With the autopilot off, it should have held steady unless someone commanded it. For a minute, it did. Then it twitched again. Nose up this time. A little jump. Then another. She said. "We didn't touch it." Mark's jaw tightened. Stabilizer trim cut out. Check positions. Elena flicked her gaze up to the overhead panel, to the pair of guarded switches labeled stab trim cutout. "Both in normal," she said. He tried a quick trim input from his yoke, thumb pressing the switch nose down. "Nothing. Try yours," he said. Elena pressed her trim switch. No response. The trim wheel, that big spoked wheel down between their knees, stayed frozen. "I've got no manual trim," she said. "Okay," Mark replied. "Control check." He eased the yoke forward and back. The nose responded, but sluggishly, like the airplane was stuck in a rut. He rolled left, then right. Again, it moved, but there was a sticky feel to it, like steering a car with the power steering failing. "Hydraulics look good," Elena said, scanning the system page. "All pressures normal." The airplane shuddered suddenly, like someone had kicked its tail. It rolled 5 degrees right, dipped the nose, then caught itself. "Whoa," Mark grunted, correcting. "You see that?" "Yeah." "And the trim just bumped nose up again," Elena said. "Mark, I think we've got some kind of runaway or fault." "Stab trim runaway checklist," he said. "I've got control. You have radios and checklist." "You have control," she echoed. He gripped the yoke harder, feeling the airplane start to fight him more with each passing second. Elena grabbed the quick reference handbook, flipping to the bright red section. Her training from Dallas flashed back. Runaway trim scenarios, memory items, the stern instructor's voice, "Move fast or the airplane will get ahead of you." "Stabilizer trim runaway," she read. "Control column, hold firmly. Autopilot, disengage." "Done," Mark said. "If runaway continues," she continued, "set both stab trim cutout switches to cutout." "Do it," he said. Elena reached up and flipped both guarded switches down. The faint whirring noise stopped. The trim indicator froze where it was, slightly nose up from cruise. She watched the numbers. Airspeed still okay. Altitude steady. But Mark was working harder. His forearms strained, knuckles whitening on the yoke. "Feels like the stabilizer's stuck nose up," he said. "We're flying it with elevator only, and it's not happy about it." On the engine displays, a slight asymmetry appeared. The right engine's N1 % dipped 2 points, then overshot a bit before settling. The airplane yawed left, then right, a lazy fishtail. The YAW damper light flicked amber. "Great," Elena muttered. "Your damper failure, too." She felt the airplane starting to want to climb. Nose creeping higher even as Mark pushed forward. Airspeed began to decay. "Speed's bleeding off," she said. 300, 285. "Need a lower altitude," Mark said. His voice was calm, but there was an undertone now. He was fighting a battle she couldn't feel yet, but she could see it in how his breathing changed. "Chicago Center, Pacific Vista 282, declaring an emergency," Elena said, keying the MIC. "We've got a possible stabilizer jam and your damper failure. Request immediate descent and vectors to nearest suitable airport." There was a pause, the kind where you knew half the room of the radar facility had just turned to look at your blip. "Pacific Vista 282, Chicago Center. Roger emergency," the controller said. "Turn left heading 260 and descend to flight level 280. Say souls on board and fuel." "Left 260, down to flight level 280, PV 282, Elena replied. She glanced at the manifest sheet clipped to her yoke. "We've got 172 souls on board, plus crew, and, about 22,000 pounds of fuel." "Copy, PV 282. Advise if you need lower." Mark tried to nudge the nose down. The yoke pushed back like a living thing. "Unable to descent rate yet," he said through gritted teeth. "She doesn't want to come down." The A-plane's pitch attitude showed a few degrees higher than it should be. Airspeed continued to drift downward, the margin between them and the stall beginning to shrink. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "Mark, you okay?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," he said, but sweat was rolling down his temple. "It's just heavy, like leg day at the gym for my arms. Keep an eye on that speed. Tell ATC we may need lower, slower, and straight in somewhere." He fought the yoke again. The jet responded sluggishly, like a stubborn horse. "Center, PV-282, Elena said. "We are having difficulty maintaining altitude. Request lower immediately, and vectors to the nearest long runway. We may need to plan for a high-speed approach." PV-282, Roger, Chicago Center said. "Nearest suitable is Kansas City International, bearing 180, 140 miles. Descend and maintain flight level 240. You'll clear direct MCI. Kansas City, FL 240, direct, PV-282, Elena said. She plugged the new destination into the flight management computer, fingers moving fast. The route line on the navigation display pivoted south. In the cabin, the seatbelt sign chimed back on. A few seconds later, the intercom buzzed. "Flight deck, Maya," came the voice. "We've got some nervous folks back here. We're also feeling a sort of nose up, nose down motion. Nothing too wild, but it's noticeable. What can I tell them?" Elena looked at Mark. He nodded slightly, eyes never leaving the instruments. His arms trembled now from the effort. "We've had a malfunction in one of our control systems," Elena said. "The captain has the airplane. We're diverting to Kansas City as a precaution. Please tell everyone to stay seated with their belts on. No service for now. Make sure the cabin is secure." "Copy," Maya said. "You two okay up there?" "We're working it," Elena said. "I'll update you soon." She hung up and turned back to Mark. "You want me to take it?" she asked. He shook his head. "Not yet. My muscle memory's deep on this. Just run the numbers. If we're stuck with nose-up trim, we're going to be landing fast and heavy. Figure out our best approach profile." Elena pulled out her iPad and opened the performance app. At their current weight and with limited pitch-down authority, a normal approach speed might not cut it. They need more speed to keep control, within reason. "Mark," she said after a moment, "at full landing flaps, we may not be able to hold the nose down. The stabilizer's fighting us. Maybe we plan flaps 15, faster approach, longer rollout. Kansas City's got a long runway." "That's what I was thinking," he said. "We want enough speed to keep authority, but not so much that we can't stop. Run the landing distance for flaps 15, no auto brakes, maximum manual braking, full reverse." She did the math. "We're within limits. Barely. We'll float more than usual, but with dry runway we should stop with a decent margin." "Good," he said. Suddenly, the A-plane gave a sharper jolt. The nose pitched up 2 degrees. "Come on," Mark hissed, hauling forward. The beginning of the stall warning warble flickered, then cut off as he forced the nose down just enough. The yoke was now almost at the forward limit just to maintain level flight. "Okay," he said, breathing harder. "This is getting old." Elena watched his hands. They shook, whether from adrenaline or strain. She couldn't tell. "Mark, we need to think about who's flying this thing 30 minutes from now, on final, when you're exhausted." "I'll be fine," he snapped, then caught himself. "Sorry, but we don't have a lot of options." "You've got, what, 30 years flying," she said. 20 on the 737. "You're strong, but you're not 25. Let me fly it now for a bit. You manage and brief." He grunted. The A-plane shuddered again as he adjusted. "We swap," she said, more firmly. "You've got experience. I've got fresh arms. That's what CRM is for." He glanced over at her. In her dark eyes he saw determination, not bravado. The simulator, months ago, flashed in her own mind. Unrecoverable, the instructor had said. Uncontrollable. But this wasn't a sim. This was 172 lives. "You really think you can hold it?" he asked. "I think I can," she said. "And if I can't, we'll know now. not at 500 feet on short final. He exhaled, then nodded. All right. On 3. I'll say, you have control. You answer, I have control, and take it. Smooth. He counted. 1, 2, 3. You have control. I have control. She wrapped both hands around the yoke and felt the airplane's resistance slam into her shoulders. It was like grabbing the bar on a heavy deadlift already halfway up. Her muscles screamed in surprise, but she held firm, locking in a slightly nose-down attitude that kept the flight path marker where it belonged. Okay, she said through her teeth. I feel it. Mark flexed his fingers, shaking out his wrists. The relief in his eyes was obvious, even if he'd never admit it. Don't chase every bump, he said. Small corrections. Think long game. You're fighting the stabilizer, not turbulence. Copy, she said. You've got radios and checklist. I have radios, he echoed. Elena centered herself in the seat, adjusted the rudder pedals slightly, and settled into the uncomfortable reality. Her entire upper body was now a substitute for a failed flight control system. The plane wanted to pitch up. It wanted to go where physics and the jammed stabilizer told it to go. Her job was to say no, over and over. By the time Kansas City came into view on the navigation display, Elena's arms felt like they were made of burning concrete. They'd managed to get down to 24,000 feet. Any lower, and the airplane's mistrimmed tendency to climb fought them harder, paradoxically. Up here, they could at least keep a tenuous balance. The cockpit was a blur of checklists, radio calls, and planning. The FAA had been notified. The airline's operations center had patched in via cars, offering suggestions and asking questions. Somewhere, an NTSB duty officer was probably already getting dressed. PV-282, descend and maintain 10,000 feet. Kansas City approach said. Expect ILS runway 19 right. 10,000, expect 19 right. PV-282, Mark replied. Elena grimaced. That's going to be a workout. Let's try a step down, Mark said. We'll go slowly so you're not fighting big pitch changes. They coordinated a series of gentle, incremental descents. Each one required Elena to push a little harder, her shoulders straining. Sweat ran down her back under her uniform shirt. At 12,000 feet, Mark called for the approach checklist. Elena, how you holding up? He asked quietly between calls. Like the world's worst CrossFit class, she said, forcing a small smile. But I'm okay. We're almost there, he said. Once we're configured, she may actually be more stable. We'll see. Or less, she replied. Or less, he admitted. Maya called again from the cabin. We've got folks praying, crying, everything, she said. I've told them we're going to be landing in Kansas City and that they'll see emergency vehicles out the window. You guys still good up there? We are, Elena said, hoping her voice didn't betray the fire in her arms. Make sure everything is secured. No loose carts, nothing in the aisles. Tell your crew to strap in early. You got it, Maya said. We trust you. The words hit Elena harder than she expected. We trust you. 172 lives back there, trusting that the two people in the front would beat the airplane at its own game. Mark leaned over his chart. We'll ask for a long final, he said. Give you time to settle in the groove. No tight turns, no last-minute configurations. Approach, PV-282, he called. With like a 10-mile or longer final, if available, due to control issues. PV-282, Roger. Turn right heading 180, descend and maintain 6,000. You're number 1 for the approach. Expect a 14-mile final. Right 180, 6,000, appreciate it. PV-282. At 6,000 feet, the ground came into view between streaks of cloud. Kansas City sprawled under them, highways, suburban neighborhoods, parking lots glinting in the late-day sun. Okay, Mark said. We're going to start configuring. Let's see how she reacts. Speed to 210. Flaps 1. 210. Flaps 1, Elena said. As she reduced speed and extended the first notch of flaps, the airplane's nose tried to jump. She grunted, pushing forward more. Okay, that's sporty, she said. Note it, Mark said. We'll be conservative. Flaps 15 max, like we talked about. On the navigation display, the localizer needle came alive. The glide slope indicator waited above, ready to slide down toward center as they intercepted the beam. PV-282, you're 5 miles from Jaisal. Maintain 3000 until established. Cleared ILS runway 19 right, approach said. 3000 until established. Cleared ILS 19 right. PV-282, Mark replied. Elena, I'm going to say this once, and only because I'd be a lousy captain if I didn't, he said quietly. If at any point you feel you're losing it, if you feel like the A-plane is flying you instead of the other way around, we go around and reevaluate. No pride, no heroics. She nodded, not taking her eyes off the runway symbol on the display. Agreed. And if we get into a situation where pitch control is gone, we're not going to wrestle it to the ground like idiots, he added. We do what we can. But I know, she cut in. I was in that sim in Dallas. They said once it's too far out of trim, you'll never control it. He gave a short, humorless laugh. I sat through that one, too. Yeah, they did. Maybe they are wrong, she said. Or maybe they are right and we haven't gone that far yet. Either way, I'm not letting go. He looked at her for a beat, then nodded. All right, let's bring it home. Localizer alive, she called. Glide slope coming down. Gear down, Mark said. Flaps 5. Gear down, flaps 5, she replied. The landing gear thumped into place. The extra drag made the nose try to rise again. Her biceps burned, but she kept the pitch where it needed to be, cross-checking the flight path vector, the ILS needles, and the runway, now a faint gray strip ahead through the haze. Flaps 15, Mark said. Landing checklist. Flaps 15, she repeated. The A-plane shuddered slightly as the additional flaps extended. The nosie's urge to rise grew stronger, almost vicious. A voice inside, sounding suspiciously like the Dallas instructor, whispered, "You'll never control it." "Not today," she muttered back. "What?" Mark asked. "Nothing," she said. "Just arguing with ghosts." She adjusted the thrust, keeping the speed about 20 knots higher than a normal VREF. Enough to maintain control authority. Enough, she hoped, to avoid the worst of the nose-up fight. Approach stable. Mark asked at 1,000 feet. Stable enough, she said. On glide slope, on localizer, speed good. Hands on fire. 500, the radio altimeter called in its mechanical voice. Wind check, Mark said. Tower, PV-282, on ILS 19 right, he called. PV-282, Kansas City Tower, wind 180 at 8, runway 19 right, cleared to land. Emergency equipment is standing by. Cleared to land. 19 right. PV-282, Mark replied. 400 feet. The runway now unmistakably in front of them. Elena, he said, whatever happens, you've done one hell of a job. Don't eulogize me yet, she said through clenched teeth. I'm busy. 300. She felt the A-plane trying one last time to dictate terms, nose edging up a fraction. Glide slope needle teasing high. She pushed back, feathers on steel, just enough. 200. Approach looks good, Mark said. Keep it coming. Small corrections. 100. The call-outs came faster now. 50, 40, 30. Hold it, Mark murmured. Elena eased back just a hair, flaring less than she would on a normal day. With the stabilizer fighting, too much flare and they'd balloon. Too little and they'd hit hard. 20, 10. The wheels slammed onto the runway harder than usual, but within the airplane's limits. A jolt, a brief skip, then solid, blessed contact with Kansas soil. The nose gear wanted to leap back into the air. She let it lower slowly, working against the trim like a wrestler pinning an opponent. Speed breaks up. Reverse is normal, Mark called. Hands moving by reflex. He raised the thrust reverser levers. The engines roared into reverse. The 737 howled down the runway, emergency vehicles pacing it along the taxiways like a red and blue honor guard. 80 knots, Mark said. Manual braking. Elena stomped on the pedals. The A-plane slowed, the end of the runway crawling toward them and then, finally, moving behind. They rolled to a stop on the centerline, just past a high-speed exit. Elena's arms went limp, the yoke feeling suddenly light now that the fight was over. The cockpit filled with a silence that was somehow louder than all the noise before. Then, as if on cue, the cabin erupted in cheers. Muffled through the closed cockpit door, the sound was still unmistakable. Clapping, shouting, crying. Elena exhaled for what felt like the first time in an hour. Her hands shook as she pulled them back from the yoke. PV-282, are you able to exit the runway? Power asked. Mark looked at her. She nodded weakly. I can stay. Don't ask me to do any push-ups. Power. PV-282, Mark said. We're able to vacate. Request the nearest taxiway and emergency crews to inspect us before we move further. PV-282, exit right at taxiway Bravo 2, Tower responded. Hold short there. Emergency crews will meet you. They rolled off at walking speed, fire trucks and ambulances converging around them in a neon procession. Mark set the parking brake. They sat there a moment, listening to their own breathing. He finally looked over at her, eyes gleaming with something between disbelief and admiration. You know, in Dallas they told us. Yeah, she said, rubbing her burning shoulders. I remember. You'll never control it. He shook his head. Don't tell them I said this. But they were wrong. You controlled it. She let out a shaky laugh. I think it was more like, we negotiated. The interphone chimed. Maya's voice was thick with emotion. Flight deck. Are we down? We're down and safe, Elena said, and hearing the words felt like waking up from a nightmare. We'll be here a few minutes while the fire department checks us out. Then we'll taxi in. You okay back there? There was a long pause, and then, to Elena's surprise, a round of applause came faintly even over the phone. Maya sniffed audibly. They're calling you a hero, she said. I think half the plane is trying to figure out how to hug you through the cockpit door. Elena swallowed hard. Tell them they can hug the airplane instead. It did most of the work. She hung up and leaned back in her seat, the adrenaline slowly ebbing, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion and a strange, buzzing relief. 2 hours later, after the fire crews had given the 737 a once-over on the runway, after the tug had gently towed them to a remote stand, after the passengers had finally come down the stairs to waiting buses and floodlights and TV cameras, Elena sat in a small conference room in the airport operations building. Her uniform shirt was untucked now, her hair pulled back into a messy ponytail. A bottle of water sweated on the table in front of her, barely touched. Across from her sat a man in a navy blazer with an NTSB badge clipped to it, and another in a Pacific Vista polo from the airline's safety department. Mark sat beside her, looking as wrung out as she felt. So let's walk through it once more, the NTSB investigator said gently, from the first indication of a problem. Elena did, in as much detail as she could. The faint tremor in the yoke, the unstable trim, the failed yaw damper, the decision to cut out the stabilizer trim, the slowly increasing control forces, the swap of control between her and Mark, the high-speed, flaps 15 landing. She kept her voice level, clinical, like she was debriefing a simulator ride. But in her mind, she could still feel every ounce of pressure in her arms. We're going to pull the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, the NTSB investigator said. We'll go over everything. But from what I'm hearing so far, you two did exactly what you needed to do. Some would say more than that. Elena shifted uncomfortably. Praise felt strange, like a jacket that didn't quite fit. I just did my job, she said. We both did. The safety officer nodded. Most people's jobs don't involve wrestling a crippled jet to a safe landing with a couple hundred people in the back. Mark looked at her, then at the investigators. I also wanted on record that when my arms gave out, she took it and never let the airplane out of the box. We teach this stuff in CRM, but today I watched it save a whole lot of lives. The NTSB man smiled faintly. We'll make sure the record reflects that. Later, when she and Mark walked through the terminal in their rumpled uniforms, there were still pockets of passengers waiting, some talking to airline representatives, some on their phones, all with that dazed, shell-shocked look of people who'd brushed up against something dark and walked away. A little boy, maybe 8 or 9, wearing a plastic pilot's wings badge from the airline, broke away from his parents and ran up to her. "Were you the pilot?" he asked breathlessly. She nodded. "One of them. We have 2 up there. But you're the one who landed it, right?" he said. "My mom said. She said you saved us." Elena glanced at his parents. They nodded, eyes shining. She knelt to get on his level, her knees popping. "We all did it together," she said. "Me, Captain Sullivan, the flight attendants, the folks in air traffic control. And the A-plane helped us out too. It wanted to go home." He grinned. "I want to be a pilot now," he announced. "Like you." Something in her chest loosened. "Then promise me you'll listen to your instructors," she said. "Even when they tell you some problems can't be solved." "But you solved it," he said, confused. She smiled. "Sometimes they are right. Sometimes they are wrong. Your job is to be ready either way." His mother hurried over, thanking her over and over. Elena let herself be hugged, feeling more awkward than she had even in front of the NTSB. That night, in a hotel room near the airport, after the phone calls with her family and the check-ins with the chief pilot and the endless text messages, Elena sat alone on the edge of the bed. The TV played muted news coverage in the background, grainy footage of the 737 surrounded by fire trucks, graphics shouting breaking news, failing plane lands safely in Kansas City. A blurry image of her and Mark descending the stairs had already made its way onto the screen. She turned the TV off. In the quiet, the simulator came back to her again. "Dallas. Fluorescent light." The instructor's voice, "You'll never control it." "Guess what?" she said aloud to the empty room. "We did." Then, after a moment, she added softly, "But it wasn't just me. It never is." She lay back, staring at the ceiling, feeling every muscle in her arms and shoulders throbbing. Tomorrow, there would be more questions, more forms, more debriefs. The NTSB would dig into every sensor and circuit. The FAA would issue bulletins. Pilots across the country would sit in crew rooms and talk about what she and Mark had done, what they might have done differently, what they hoped they'd have the courage to do if they were ever in that seat. Tonight, though, there was only the hum of the air conditioner and the knowledge that 172 people were sleeping in hotel rooms and guest rooms and maybe even their own beds who might not have been. She closed her eyes. Out there, in the darkness over Kansas, jets traced their silent paths across the sky. Autopilots hummed, flight directors winked, trim systems did their work unnoticed. And somewhere in a training center, another instructor was probably telling another class of pilots about runaway trim and irrecoverable scenarios. Elena hoped, just a little, that they'd add a new footnote to that lesson now. Sometimes, when everything says you'll never control it, you still can. If you're fast, if you're trained, if you trust your team, and if you're willing to hold on with everything you've got, all the way down to the runway.